You wanted to start with Denver and Carolina. The Panthers go ahead and improve to 4-8 on the season. They beat the Broncos 23-10 in a game that was offensively not so pretty, once again, from that Denver side, especially here. And this Broncos team, at what point does this thing end up changing with the head coach? And I know the quarterback, they're locked in on that, but they got to do something because clearly this isn't working out.
Well, look, I watched this game from start to finish because Maddie, my son, is down there in Carolina, so I have interest in the game. Mm-hmm. And his mother makes sure that the game is on the big screen in our house and
with the volume
turned all the way up, So, and by the way, I saw a commercial yesterday that they said, meet NFL legend RG3. I mean, when did he become a fucking legend? I mean, seriously, when did he become an NFL legend? I know he won the Heisman. I know he was great at Baylor. But can you please do a documentary on when he became a legend? Anyway, I'll get back to that. I saw that commercial. I went off the hook. I mean, I was going nuts. Anyway, so, look, I think as an executive of the league, this is a painful time because there's decisions that you have to make. And I worked with Paul Hackett. I really like Paul Hackett a lot. I learned a lot of football from his father, Nathaniel's father, Paul. So it pains me to say this. But as an executive watching the Denver Broncos, the team doesn't care anymore. The team's not listening anymore. They're not hearing anymore. They're not playing with any enthusiasm anymore. I mean, they're just going through the motions. They're waiting for the guillotine to drop. Now, I'm not saying that if it drops, it's going to get better. All I'm saying is basically the team's not listening. And as the general manager, that's the number one thing you've got to evaluate. When everybody was on Josh McDaniels' ass, as the media campaign was trying to get him fired for the worldwide leader and all through the outside sources, you could say the Raiders suck. I didn't disagree. But they were playing hard. And they were listening to what the coaches were saying, even though they weren't very good. They're still not very good. They play hard, and you can see the messaging to the field, right? That's what you want to see as an executive. You want to be able to see, are they buying in? Is the team meetings being helpful? And when I watched Denver yesterday, Femi, it was lethargic. There was nothing there. They were just going through the motions, and that's the worst place to be in football. And I feel bad for Nathaniel. I feel bad for him. I feel bad that he got put in a job that I don't think he was ready for. So I think that I know that they're proud of their process in Denver of how they came to Nathaniel Hackett. It was the wrong process. You might want to reevaluate that. Remember, when you have 5 people involved in a decision, it's going to be a bad decision because they've never dedicated a monument to a committee. So, that's a big issue. I just think, to me, if I'm the owner of the Broncos, I'm going to have to do something right now. Now, that doesn't absolve it doesn't absolve my man, Russell Wilson. But I got to try to get the team to play at a higher level.
So if you were the owner or the general manager of the Denver Broncos, would you make that change at head coach today?
I would do it today. I would have done it on the plane last night. I mean, to me, this isn't about Nathaniel not being qualified. That's already been determined. The job's too big for him, right? We've seen that already. What I would say is we've got to get we got to spend the next few weeks trying to evaluate what we have. We got to do an autopsy, and as long as the messaging's not being heard, we can't really do an autopsy. So, promote the defensive coordinator, give him a chance to see what he can do, to see if he'll rally the team around him, and try to find a way to evaluate some of these players. Because defensively, as good as they've been all year, they weren't very good yesterday. I mean, Carolina had 46 rushes for 185 yards, and their longest run of the game was only 18 yards. So it wasn't like they took off for a long run. Like, they were able to make yards doing some things in the run game. So for me, I got to be able. You got to salvage something of the season, and I don't think interim coaches are the best thing. But when you see the players have stopped listening, and there's disheartening within the building, and there's a lack of true effort, then you can't fire the team, and you certainly can't fire the quarterback. And the quarterback's not defending anybody either. Let's be honest here. You're going to have to hold somebody accountable, and unfortunately, I think it's the head coach. To me, at 4 o'clock today, I would not be surprised if they made a move. Because if you just look at the landscape, all the symptoms that tell you to make a change are there.
It's been a disaster season for the Denver Broncos, and to kind of cap it off from a betting perspective, that loss yesterday clinched their regular season win total under. That total was set at 9.5 this summer, and they've already went ahead and lost 8 games this season. So that's just putting into context how bad it's been. You mentioned the quarterback, though, Michael, and you were watching the game, so I'm sure you saw it as well. The Denver defense starting to get a little ornery about Russell Wilson. One of the defensive linemen, I believe Purcell is his name, was yelling at Russell Wilson. Yeah. And they asked Russell Wilson about that after the game, and he said, hey, he was just saying that let's get effing going, and I agree with him. Like, we got to get it going. What did you make of that? And could there be a potential dissension within that locker room with the offense being so anemic all throughout this season?
You know, what I've learned in football in my career is you can't fool the players, right? You can't fool them. You can't stand in front of them and say, Russell's great, you know, when they know he's not great. And so that disconnects there. There's going to be turmoil in the locker room because when your best player isn't your best player and your highest paid player isn't your best player, you're going to have a bad locker room. Just no two ways around it. You just can't fix that. You know, this is a mistake that was in the design of it, not the production. It was in the design. And so when you did that and you gave him this huge contract, you created the dissension within your locker room. So the Denver defense is tired of playing doubleheaders. They can't play from in front. They can't really utilize their skill set. I mean, they don't score any points on offense. You know, yesterday they're 4 for 14 on third down. And Russell, to me, reminded me when I was watching the game yesterday, I wrote in my notes, he's Allen Iverson when he went to the Nuggets. You know, that remember Iverson in his prime was exceptionally at just being able to penetrate, you know, get some shots off that maybe he shouldn't and make plays that he shouldn't have made. Well, you know, once he lost that step, once he lost that explosiveness, and he couldn't do that, all of a sudden, being 6 feet tall became a problem. All of a sudden, not being able to finish became a problem. That's with Russell. He can't escape from anybody. He's got no burst, no quickness. You know, he's got all the words to say it. He's got all the verbiage. Oh, you know, let's do this. But he's not an athlete anymore. He's not the same athlete. He's slow. He's methodical. He's a plotter. He doesn't get away from it. And then when he's on the move, he's never making a play. So to me, that's the scary part. You know, last year we talked about it on this pod. We said, hey, look, the guy rushed for his career low of 183. They went ahead and traded for him anyway. They had to be concerned about it. You know, they had to be concerned that he didn't escape. And Seattle, John Schneider, give him credit. I mean, the son of a gun, he saw it. And just like we all saw it, like they weren't going to pay him that contract, and they got rid of a player. So God bless them, and Denver stuck with it. Now Denver, you know, you're George Payton. You're in charge to pick the quarterback and pick the head coach because he does have that job. You say, well, Lombardi, you know, you didn't pick a right. I've never had the authority to pick the coach and pick the quarterback. No, those jobs are hard to get. Those jobs are hard to get in the NFL. Like in the mafia, there's a lot of layers in between those jobs, right? you might have influence, but you ain't picking them. Therefore, you know, Payton's going to have to sit with this one.
Russell Wilson yesterday, 2 carries for 8 yards, something that you didn't see in the first 10 years of his career there. And we were talking
125 yards passing, Femi.
It's
125 yards passing. I mean, he tried to throw it. They averaged 3.3 per pass. I mean, everybody makes fun of Sam Darnold. He averaged 8.6 in the game. Now, he wasn't great. I mean, the Broncos defense held Carolina to 2 for 12 on third down. 2 for 12 on third down.
They lost by double digits. That's pretty crazy. One of my early season predictions, and we'll kind of put a bow on this whole Denver thing, was for Denver to do the big things, to possibly win the division, maybe win the AFC or even win the Super Bowl. I predicted Broncos-Packers in the Super Bowl. That's looking smart. So we got to go ahead and give the mea culpa on that. I was dead ass wrong on the Denver Broncos this season. 3-8, 1-5 on the road, but it's been an atrocious season here for Denver. And yeah, that's a big old whiff. There'll be chances that we'll get to do the victory laps. That's coming up later on this season, but we got to go ahead and take the ugly pill as well.
Hey, look, you know, the only way you learn in life is to admit your mistake. I got to tell scouts, the young scouts that talk to me, if you ever meet a scout who tells you when the first time you meet him, he said, "Oh, I found these 5 players." Well, no, tell me about the 3 guys you fucked up on. Because if you don't admit your mistakes, you're never going to learn anything.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, hopefully I take away some learning throughout this loss with the Denver Broncos this season there, because, man, that was one of the ugly predictions that I made. Thanks for watching the GM Shuffle with Michael Lombardi, and for more videos like this, make sure to subscribe to VSiN Live and the GM Shuffle podcast with Michael Lombardi, presented by DraftKings and VSiN, wherever you get your podcasts.